I mean, I like the Book of Esther.
Why?
I mean, well, my name is Esther. So, naturally.
No, that's over. And Esther. This is actually the first book. Never mind. I'll save that. No, go for it.
Well, no, this is the first book I decided to read from the Bible when I started trying to read the Bible consistently.
Really?
Oh, that's
Senior
neat.
year of high school.
Why?
I would go to work. Why?
Why Esther of all the books?
Because
That's so random.
it is my youth pastor's favorite book in the Bible. My old youth pastor back in Connecticut, he loved the Book of Esther and talked about it a lot. But then I've told people that and I've gotten a backlash for it because they don't like Esther.
Why don't they like Esther?
Because they don't like that she hid her faith in like the first couple chapters. And then there's like this kind of shame in this. And I disagree. I think it's like it's weird. I don't know. I mean, we can talk about that.
I mean, it is the very end. I like how you started with the very end of like the Old Testament. Because like Esther, you have I think you have Esther, and then you have like some of the end of like Ezra and Nehemiah. Like people have already left Babylon. Like that, they've already been delivered per se. But you can't just teleport millions of people across that landscape, and so you have to do that over time. And Esther takes place just in Persia, or nowadays Iran. But I thought that was so cool when I first learned that it was Iranians. Yeah. Those are the ones who did it, and they're not Muslim. They're not Arab. Well, they are now, but like they never were.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
Interesting.
it's interesting just to remember that like they didn't have anything to do with Islam. There's probably
because it
some.
wasn't around yet, right? It was like another 1,000 years or something before.
Well,
Islam was
even then, like Islam wasn't when it came out. That wasn't an Iranian thing. It was the Islamic Revolution in the 20th century. Yeah, if you look at pictures of Iranians from like the 60s and 70s, they don't have any of the garb. They're
Really?
they look like Americans.
Huh.
Yeah, it is very interesting. And I think I learned it was an architecture class. I learned, and it makes sense when you start reading Esther. The Persians didn't really care what you believed. They kind of accepted whoever.
Yeah.
And they were cool with you doing whatever you want as long as you recognize them as like the supreme power. It's like, yeah, we could end you if we want to, but we're not gonna because you're not messing with us.
Okay.
And that's why they allowed Jews to practice what they wanted to and believe what they wanted to. There wasn't like religion oppression.
Okay.
And like later you see the only reason why the Jews get oppressed is because you have Haman. There's like one dude decided that had to happen. The king was like, I don't care. But anyway, that's just kind of some background to the story. Nick, you shared your initial thoughts. Esther?
I mean, I like the Book of Esther.
Why?
I mean, well, my name is Esther. So, naturally.
No, that's over.
I have a book named after me in the Bible.
Right.
I think it's pretty neat.
Is that the same crown?
Yes, this is the crown that I had when I became queen back in the day.
Right.
A couple years back. I actually haven't read this book in like a couple of years until y'all asked me to be on here. Then I was like, oh, I should read that book again. It's a good one.
Yeah.
So it was cool reading it again after following Jesus more and just like reading it with that new perspective and everything. So, but
Cool.
I really like it. So.
Nice.
Boo whoever doesn't.
One big question just with theology, we can either decide to answer this now or we can answer this after we kind of go through the story. Why does God not mentioned at all in the book of Esther? I don't know if you noticed that when you read it.
Yeah, no, I've talked about this with people
like God's
before.
name is not mentioned, and really, it's really more of just a narrative. It's just a story.
Yeah.
And it's some people don't like that.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. It's because it makes the story a little more real. It's God's just kind of he's hanging back. He's letting humans show off. Not in a bad way. It's like, hey, I made them.
Yeah.
They're my people, and let's just see what they do.
Yeah.
And that's the approach I take when I read it. Y'all have any thoughts on that, or y'all want to save it for the end?
I mean, there's definitely like divine intervention involved in the story, so I definitely agree that it's not like God's absent. It's just like
Plays a sneaky
there doesn't need to be, unlike most of the Old Testament, like this booming voice from the sky that says, "I'm going to make locusts appear for no reason," you know. I think that if anything, this story, because of that, can equate more to like now when Christians try and go live like the normal work life and just go with their career and try and be like good people who are faithful to God without like overtly preaching at people. Because I know that when I've tried to like tell people about God super like upfront and openly, which can work and is encouraged if it will work, they kind of like pulls people away. And I think most of the time, what I've seen for people I've encountered, it's more effective to just be the person Christ has called you to be, and that's like what Esther and Mordecai get to do here.
Yeah, because like you're saying, there's definitely divine intervention, or you were saying, one of you was saying.
It was him. Yeah, it's okay.
As you were saying. Because like all throughout the story, you see Mordecai just so happens to be the person who discovers the plot to kill the king, and then that's how he gets recognized, and he just so happens to be the one that Haman is like, why aren't you bowing down to me? I'm going to kill all the Jewish people. And Esther just so happens to be the one to, like, just so many things that it just so happens.
Well, that's just how our lives are now. That's what the New Testament looked like. And maybe that's why, you know, the Lord is not so directly in the stories, because the kind of human experience I think he wanted us to have was more organic and letting us kind of have a different perspective on religion and just laws and stuff, because we are moving away. Like I said, we're at the end of the line for the Old Testament, and then we're about to have Jesus. Another 500 years or 400 years needed to pass, but so
I agree. Maybe this story is like a good testimony to the fact that, especially now, like why people see God being so different in the Old Testament versus the New was because the more active role he played. I guess this is showing that like God orchestrated it all from the beginning to work out this way. He doesn't need to intervene because he already did by creating everything in the first place and setting up the like whole process.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to do the whole boom thing. That only needs to happen for like a little bit, and then everything else he's like, I created it. I know what's gonna happen. I can let it play out because it was me that did it in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.